Welcome to the Herbalist Path. If you love learning about the power of plant medicine and how to use it in your life, this show is for you. I'm Mel Butterspa, clinical herbalist, herbal educator, and your host. In each episode, you're going to hear me sharing herbal insights and knowledge from my 25 plus years of working with and learning from the plants. Plus, I'm going to share interviews with some of the most amazing herbalists, educators, farmers, and healers out there, all bringing their herbal wisdom here for you. Really, this show is all about continuing this movement to put an herbalist in every home and a healer in every community. Again, thank you so much for listening, and welcome to the Herbalist Path. Enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode here on the Herbalist Path. I am really excited to share today's guest with you and to learn a lot from our guest today. Her name is Ashley Elenbaas, and she runs Sky House Herbs, where she teaches herbalism. She works with people one-on-one as a clinical herbalist. She is also a yoga instructor and really brings in the all-encompassing beautiful pieces of healing that our bodies and nature have all together. And one thing that drew me to Ashley, she is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she has really had boots on the ground doing the good work that an herbalist can do in their community. And it has been unbelievably inspiring seeing the images of the packages and things that they're putting together for people that need help in her area, and watching her daughter get involved in the process is always such a fun thing too. So I'm excited to learn from Ashley. I'm pretty sure that y'all will be excited as well. And Ashley, thank you so much for taking time out of your life to join us on the show.
Oh, thank you, Mel. I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, boots on the ground is that's exactly what it's been like the last month. So I'm excited to share kind of what I've learned about grassroots herbal organizing and see what shows up as well.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear about it. And before we dive into that good juiciness, I would love to just hear a little bit more about you, just from what I've read on your website and seen on social media. You have had a really beautiful journey into the world of herbalism and letting the plants basically call you into this work. And I'd love to hear about you and your journey. How did this path start for you?
I love this question because I can start from so many different moments, right? And I'm sure everyone who is a plant person is like, well, there was this moment and there was that person. And so I think today I might pick it up from when I knew plants were healers. So that happened when I was around 12. I was struggling with a bunch of health issues. I had asthma, I had digestive issues. I was allergic to like everything. And my mom took me to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, where I grew up. And they said, well, we got this experimental drug. We could try it with you and see if that helps, because we don't know why you're so reactive. And my mom was like, nope. And so we got out of there as quickly as we could. And she took me to a naturopath. And that naturopath was practicing out of his home. His 2 and 5-year-old were like running around in diapers, I remember. And he did muscle testing. He practiced homeopathy, herbalism, and acupressure. So when I went to see him and he modified my diet, introduced me to homeopathy and plant-based medicine, within 6 months, pretty much all of my symptoms had resolved. It was amazing. And my mom, as a result, also became vegetarian, because that was one of the things he was like, I'm pretty sure you're allergic to dairy and you're really reactive to meat proteins. So my mom was like, well, I'll do this with you. So that was kind of a cool bonding experience for my mom and I. And both of our health drastically improved. And in 6 months, I was off all the medications, the prednisone, the inhalers. And I was like, okay, these things work. And I was eating more plants, and I was like, plants are pretty good for us. And so that kind of started me off on the trail of health. And then when I went to school in Asheville, North Carolina, and went into environmental restoration, and started learning about how to restore degraded environments, that got me on the path of, I mean, I had been an activist, I guess I should say. Like since I was in high school, I was like the hippie, made my own clothes, like went to Grateful Dead shows and fish tour. Like I was that girl in high school. Okay. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So like we were exposed to a lot of nature. I was exposed to a lot of psychedelics and altered consciousness states, which opened me up to this idea that the world is alive, plants are alive, and that we are not separate from nature. So when I went away to school, I knew I wanted to work in nature and in the environment. And I thought the only path was environmental work. So that's where I went. But then I realized, gosh, I'm going to just be cleaning up trash and fixing soil and marshlands. Like that's not actually what I want to do. So fast forward, I found my way to herbs and got my master's in clinical herbalism at what was then the Thai Sophia Institute, and got a 3-year master's of science in clinical herbalism, which was pretty new. Like the only options were naturopathic medicine and then this master's level program, at least that I knew of. And then I realized much later, I was like, oh, wait, there's a lot of herb schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up tapping into those later in my journey to learn more of the eclectic and vitalist traditions. But yeah, that's kind of how it all came together for me.
I love your story. I feel like I can resonate on so many levels. And the first thing that I find truly fascinating is that you were tapping into this at the age of 12. And that's fascinating because my daughter is 12 right now, and she's grown up immersed in the world of herbs and plants. And she's kind of getting to that part of her life where she's discovering or exploring more of who she is. And in that is like, oh, I need to rebel a little bit from everything that my mom has taught me. Not that she doesn't appreciate the plants, but I sometimes wonder, would it be different had she not, grown up with that in her face? Being in an apothecary at the age of 3, watching people come in for help. So that's beautiful that you were that in touch. She's always been very in touch with when she's going to get ill. Like since she was really tiny, Mom, I don't feel good and no symptoms are showing. And I would just be like, you're okay. And then, a day or two later, there's the symptoms. And I'm like, oh, this young child is very intuitive. And now, it also came to like, if she would have any type of anxiety, she'd immediately be like, my tummy hurts. And I'm like, oh, look at that connection. That's beautiful. Yeah, really, really cool. So I love hearing that story and that your mom was so supportive in that realm too. And then just hearing you about the whole, like, I'm assuming the 90s for you as well.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah.
90s girl.
The 90s and the fish shows and the dead shows and the desire for environmental kind of studies. I went to school for environmental and experiential ed, and I just wanted to be outside and inspiring kids to love nature as much as I did. So that's great. I love it. I love that too. Tell me more about the Thai Sophia Institute. That's not something I've ever heard of. I remember I was living in Georgia, and I would flip through the paper catalogs of NCNM here in Portland, Oregon. Didn't have any idea what a naturopath was at that time. I was like 17, 16, and I was like, this seems interesting. But I've never heard of the Thai Sophia Institute.
Yeah, so the Thai Sophia Institute actually was founded in the 1970s as an acupuncture school by a couple, Bob Duggan and Diane Connolly. But they were not just acupuncturists. They followed the work of philosophy and this idea that healing presence is just as important as the mode of medicine itself. And the co-founders, I think it was sometime in like 2001, opened it up to become both a school for herbal medicine and a school for the applied healing arts, which is like basically allowing you to train with them to be a healing presence and not necessarily having to have a specific training in a modality like acupuncture or herbalism. And then they got accredited. And I want to say I worked in the admissions office there for about 3 years because I just loved their philosophy. And it was a cool place to hang out. Like, what cooler place to hang out than an acupuncture herb school with people who are doing stuff you want to do. So, so they became accredited through Middle States accreditation, which, basically accredits all of the colleges of Harvard, Yale, University of Maryland in 2003. And so I started their program in 2005, and it's a 3-year, it's a little different now. So when I went there in 2005 to 2008, it was a 3-year full-time master's of science, and it was all in person. So we had to show up to class 3 days a week from 9 to 5. And then we had our clinical training there. We had to bring our own clients in, and then we were supervised. It was a supervised clinic. We did all of our own custom formulating. We did all of our follow-up visits with a supervisor, and it was wonderful. And I loved it. I still am in touch with my teachers, but it's changed a lot. It actually then changed names to the Maryland University of Integrative Health. Maybe you've heard of MUIH. Yeah. Then it was recently bought out by Notre Dame University. So now it's part of the Notre Dame education system. So it's kind of, it's seen a lot of phases, but at the heart, their herbal curriculum is fantastic. It's a really nice blend of sort of traditional energetics and Western clinical science.
I love that. That sounds incredible. I have a few students that went to MIUH. Is that what it is?
MUIH, yeah.
Okay. I have a few students that went there and really appreciate all of the education and knowledge they got in that process. Did you learn with Jillian Stansbury? Was she a part of it when you were there?
Yes, she was.
Nice. She's one of my teachers also. She's absolutely brilliant. So it sounds like a fabulous, fabulous program and exciting. And I absolutely cannot blame you for wanting to be in the admissions office and hanging out with a bunch of fellow herbalists and healers and people on this path. Tend to be really good people.
They were, yes, totally.
So I know you were also really into yoga. So I'd love to just hear some more about your journey and how your practice has evolved and how that has looked for you. If you have been paying any kind of attention to the world today, you know that there are so many people out there that are struggling for one reason or another. And if you're listening to this podcast, or if you're like me, you likely have a lot of compassion and empathy and this strong desire to do whatever you can to help other people. And if that is you, I did put together a guide for you. It's called Medicine for the People, an herbalist guide to showing up for your community in times of need. And I give you plenty of ideas in ways that you can use your herbal skills to help people in your community and organizations to connect with that can help you along the path as well. So if you want that guide, you better believe it is linked down in the show notes, totally free, really just a way to inspire you to take your herbal skills and knowledge and step out to help people that need you here and now. So it's linked for you. Go ahead and grab it if you want it. Take care.
Yeah, it was interesting when you said your daughter is 12 and she's kind of getting into all of this. I was 12 when I took my first yoga class, and I was really lucky because I had a cool aunt. Do you have a cool aunt?
I had cool aunts. My daughter does, but she's like 3 hours away.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, mine was like in Minnesota when I was growing up in Maryland. So she was a distance cool aunt, but she took me to my first yoga class when I was 12. And I just remember like that statue in your background, that Shiva statue. There was a huge Shiva, like a brass statue. There was incense and candles, and it was in uptown Minneapolis. And I just remember thinking, yes, whatever this is where I want to be. So it wasn't until, I started reading a lot of books on yoga philosophy and Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I was reading like Terrence McKenna at 14. I don't know. I was like, there's more and I want to know about it. So I dove in pretty deep when I was young. And so then when I was 18 and I went to school in Asheville, they had a yoga and meditation class as electives. So I was like, yes. So I started taking those classes. Then I met the yoga community in Asheville and I was in. And I, instead for spring break, instead of going, to party like everyone else, I went to a yoga ashram for a week and did an intensive immersion. And it was wonderful. And so then when I was 22, I got my first yoga certification, started teaching.
Nice.
And that was such a gift and set me on the path of teaching and sharing breath work and movement. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And it led me to meet my husband, which is pretty cool. He was teaching yoga and doing astrology up in New York City when I was in DC. And I had just finished with my herb school. I graduated. I was running a yoga studio wellness center for two women. It's a really cool place called Blue Heron Wellness. So I was their yoga studio manager and I was seeing clients there. And then I met my husband and then we opened up our own yoga studio in Silver Spring, Maryland. And it was donation based and it combined yoga, astrology, and herbal medicine. So we had everything. It's called Sky House Yoga and everything was under one roof. And that was great. We owned that for 11 years and it was a beautiful community. And then in 2019, after my second daughter was born, I was like, I can't do all of this. It was just too much. So we closed the studio down right ahead of COVID, which was like, whew, that was a close call.
Absolutely.
And we moved home to where my husband grew up and where I was born, which is Minnesota. And I took a 3-year sabbatical from teaching and practicing and everything. I just really needed a reset. And so now I still have my daily yoga practice and meditation practice, which is like a cornerstone of my sanity. And now I teach yoga for women who are in recovery from drug addiction. And that's kind of my specialty. I did some training there and I love it. So I help them be in their bodies and just find peace in their bodies as they're in an inpatient treatment program. So that's kind of where my yoga is at the moment.
What a beautiful offering. And I really love hearing that story and how you are helping those women specifically when they are in that recovery phase. Just beautiful. And I love hearing the combination of your husband and you and your skills and your talents and gifts to offer the world with yoga and astrology and herbs, because they really all do come together in such beautiful ways. So I love that. So Sky House Yoga, then you were like, hey, I have another beautiful being that I've created. And this takes time, and I need me, and I need to mother, and all of the other aspects that can go into that. It really does become a lot. I've had many different herbal business ventures where I'm like, okay, another area of life needs focus right now. So how can we do that? And yeah, I love that you honored that. And it sounds like now you have Sky House Herbs.
That's right. Yeah. So Sky House Herb School was actually created when Sky House Yoga was still around. So it kind of I started teaching my apprenticeship in, I think it was 2014. Was that? I think it was, yeah, around then. And so I started the herb school as sort of an under umbrella from the yoga studio. So then when we closed the yoga studio, I really wanted to keep my herb teaching. And I kind of felt like in terms of, like you said, there's kind of seasons for different businesses and different things. And I have always been one to try to honor the cycles and not hold on to things longer than I have to, which as a double Taurus is kind of hard, but I'm getting better every year. So like letting the studio go to rest and then focusing on my herbal practice and my herbal teaching. And so that has persisted until now. So I'm still doing that work. And even when I took my sabbatical, well, I actually took 2 years off of teaching altogether, but I was always posting and sharing what I was learning as I was building my garden here in Minneapolis and getting that going. But yeah, it's important, I think, as creatives, right? Like most herbalists and people that are in the healing work are creative people.
Yeah.
And to be reminded that because there's something, if there's something that's brewing and bubbling up, like let yourself explore that. But when it starts to die back, like the plants do in the fall and winter, it's also okay to let some of those things go.
Mhm.
And so that's been part of how my business has worked is things bubble, they bloom, and then I kind of let them just fall away.
I love that. That's a beautiful analogy to put it all together. It's so nice. And really that resting part, it sparked something in my mind where a poem that I wrote long ago that I can't remember all of right now, but it was a lot about that. Like, okay, it's time to lay it to rest, just as nature does every single year. And then the new things bubble up, the new seeds start to sprout and blossom into beautiful things. So that's amazing. A lot of what brought me to reach out to you is seeing the incredible work you are doing in your town of Minneapolis, really supporting people in your community on a whole other level. It seems like a new type of flower blossoming. Maybe it's a lichen hanging from the trees. I don't know. But I'd love to hear a little bit about that. I know times have been very tense and wild and insane in Minneapolis, just as it has been here in Portland, Oregon, only a different flavor. So, yeah, I'd love to hear you share a bit about what's going on for you and your community.
Yeah. And to preface it by saying, like you just said, if we don't let things die and have space, then when there's community needs that arise, we won't have the bandwidth to do anything. And I really do think that in some ways we were so grateful in Minneapolis this was happening in the winter that if we are to have an insurgence of federal you know
Sure.
employees and yeah, exactly, come into our city. Let's do it when we're at our best, which is winter, when we as Minnesotans know how to bear the cold, we know how to rest, and we also know how to act and how to be out in the cold. And so, it was a time where a lot of my seasonal projects that are outdoors were completely at rest. So when the need arose, I said, okay, I have bandwidth. Like I know what I can do and I know what I can't do alone. So I reached out to the North Country Herbalists Guild. That's the active herbal community here in Minneapolis. And I said, hey, I have an idea. Would you all be interested in partnering with me? And so it was a lot of back and forth conversation of like, what can we do to serve people, especially our immigrant populations that were sheltering in place, that were in their homes. There were already mutual aid situations and groups popping up, delivering groceries, delivering medical supplies, and things like that. And so I was like, well, could we also jump on those mutual aid forces and distribute herbs? What would that look like? So I reached out to other herbalists and I partnered with Linda Black Elk, who was doing a lot of work with the protesters in the indigenous communities here. And so she had something going on her end. And I was like, okay, well, Linda's got this covered. Like she's covering frontline protester, like balms for when people are getting pepper sprayed and getting gassed with all these awful chemicals. She had the herbs coming into her for salves, for first aid, lung tonics for people being not only inhaling the pepper spray, but being out in the cold and in the elements, and then nervine and immune support. So I went into the city and helped package some of those up. And I was like, okay, this is what she's doing. What can I do to get things into the homes of families that are not leaving their houses? So I started partnering and asking questions from mutual aid groups and, people I know in the community, like what would be helpful. So that's kind of how it started. And I can tell you more about what we did, but that's kind of how things kind of bubbled up.
I love hearing that and how you are taking advantage or optimizing the beautiful people in your community already doing the work and seeing, okay, that is being done. How can I collaborate? How can I add to this picture, or where where is there a hole that needs to be filled that I can fill well? I think that is a really beautiful piece of it, because if somebody decides to come along and say, well, I'm going to grab all of these salves and nervines and immune support herbs and take them to the front lines of the protesters, well, that's already being done. So I love that you took advantage of connecting with them and learning and really reaching out to community members. That is so what it is all about. And I've seen many of your posts where you're reaching out like, hey, we could use help with these kinds of items and these kinds of items, reaching out even beyond your Minnesota community to the herbal community at large. And I think it's been really cool to see. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how it's continued to evolve. I know you're still like very active in
Yeah, just to see, let me show you kind of, this is where I'm storing. Do you see all those boxes and bags? And so yeah, we're still actively preparing kits. So we have every Thursday, we have volunteers come over and put these kits together. And then every Friday morning, I have my mutual aid contacts coming to my house to pick them up. And then they distribute them to their groups. We've got a really cool system. And I've actually had a few people reach out to me asking me, how did you do this? How did this happen? Because two women in Richmond, Virginia that are having ICE is starting to make an impact on their communities. I gave them basically everything I had. I said, okay, here's what I'm doing for my care kits. Here's my mission vision statement that I crafted with the NCHG. Here's the handouts we have in 3 different languages that go into the kits with instructions. Like, take this, like, let's all have access to these resources so that we can have these like mushroom, it's like the mycelial network. Like, let's share all the information. And then when things need to pop up in certain cities, you've got everything you need.
I love it. Yeah, that's so beautiful and essential, right? That is what it is all about, being the ones that can help and support. I'm really fortunate. I live in a pretty rural area, but it's a very touristy area also. So I feel like it's a vortex of fantastic human beings.
Cool.
After living all over the country for most of my childhood and being born in Germany, when I finally landed here on Mount Hood, I was like, oh, these are my people. And that's like 19 years ago. Anyways, we have been meeting with a collective of women in this community since November of 2024, where we were all like, oh, women's rights, immigrant rights, all of these things are about to shift dramatically. How can we come together as a community to care for those that are under attack, to make sure that we're well aware and trained in what we can do for ourselves, for our families, for our neighbors, and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously, one of my key pieces there is the herbal piece, but it's really beautiful seeing how we are coming together. Like, again, rural area, some of our meetings have 60 women. That's pretty impressive. And there's been a local restaurant opening their doors for those kinds of things and for the meetings, and a lot of interest in putting together herbal care kits. But we are having a hard time finding out who exactly needs those and how to get to them, and organizing the food drops, like the herbs would go with that. It's really exciting seeing the interest and desire to help in larger ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's true here. It's mostly women. Like, it's moms. And there was actually an article in, Minneapolis Public Radio, or it was like a podcast episode on soccer moms are the ones driving the mutual aid.
Yeah.
This is in Minneapolis. And it's true. I think it's just like, when you see a child suffering as a mother or a woman, and I'm sure men too, but it's like, I think there's something for us as moms, where especially it's like, that is not okay. I have 1 hour, I can do something, or I've got 3, like I've got some capacity and I can do this. And so, yeah, it's been mostly women, pretty much all women in the networks that I've been organizing, and my volunteers, and, all of these mutual aid groups happening in churches. And, I've been trying to pop in where I can, because it's true. It's like, you have to make these connections with different groups that are doing different parts of the process. And that's how you make how you make it move from an idea into the people's hands who need it. And I will say this is kind of an interesting thing. I was listening to, I don't know if you ever listened to the Emerald podcast.
No, but I'm
Oh,
writing it in my notes.
amazing. It's amazing. So it's like the mythic, and it's an animistic podcast on ancient truths in the mythic body of the modern world. And it's like really rich. But he was mentioning that there was a study that was done that when people are abandoned, let's say on an island, or there's a plane crash, or people get lost in the woods, that one of the key indicators for the chance of them surviving and getting out of that peril situation is in the first 30 seconds, can they stop and orient? And specifically for people that have been lost or have a plane wreck, if they hug a tree in the first 30 seconds of that dissociative experience, they're like 90 times more likely to make it out. Because our nervous systems, when there is a crisis and we stop and we don't just react, but we stop, we touch into nature and we orient ourselves to where we actually are and what's actually around us and take that time, that is the greatest predictor of our success. And I feel like what I noticed happened in Minneapolis was that a lot of the organizers paused. And it took me a week and a half to get oriented, to reach out, to have phone calls, to craft emails, to do all of that before I did a single thing, before I called out for any help. It was a really strong orientation process. And so that's, I think, something that I would really strongly recommend for people that are hitting a crisis moment is don't act first. Like pause, ground, hug another woman, like hug a friend, hug a tree, orient, cry, do all of that, and then figure out what is the next step, who is the next connection. And that, I think, has made the world of difference, because before I reached out, and like you've seen the emails and the Facebook and Instagram posts, is I said, who are my people here? And once I organized with our regional herbalist guild, and then we put our heads together, then all of the pieces started coming together. And then I had this friend who worked in a mutual aid group who knew that I was an herbalist, reached out, and it was all of these people that came together very organically, but it took some time before the path became clear. So that was something that I learned in this process that I think can be replicated in other communities.
I think that is a brilliant piece of wisdom. And as you were speaking it, I was like, oh, in this moment, I am seeing that exact thing. I am a person who naturally wants to quickly react. But when I take that time to step out on the river, to breathe and appreciate where I am now so that I can feel grounded, it makes a world of difference. And this is something I was actually talking about with my daughter this weekend. She went on Saturday and got her American Red Cross infant pediatric CPR and babysitter training, which was awesome, right? So on the drive home, it's like an hour and a half drive home together. We were talking about the things that she learned and talking about like, what would you do in these emergency situations? And I was like, the first thing you should do is stop, take a breath, and assess. And long ago, I was a backpacking guide and wilderness therapist and got my wilderness first responder training. And that's the first thing they teach you to do. Stop, assess the scene, gather your mind so that you can now move forward. And it really does play into all of these different processes too. I'm seeing that I'm part of this whole connection and collaboration of women in the community has naturally brought me to a position of I love working with the kids. And so I want to do an after school herbalism club, which quickly became, oh, let's make it a gardening club. And I'm like, I'll teach herbalism. I'll generate some excitement and build the community around it. But taking that time to pause and see which pieces come together and the organic involvement and who is really skilled in this department and who's skilled over here really helps build that foundation
Mhm.
so that this can become a more successful and useful thing. So yeah, just you speaking about that triggered a whole cascade of wisdom from you into me.
Oh,
So
I
thank you.
love that. Yeah, I love that. And that is true in any emergency. Yeah, that pause, that moment is so, and that's what the yogis taught us. I mean that this is what spiritual traditions have taught us for thousands and thousands of years is that gap, right? Between one thought and the next and one action and the next. So it's as relevant now as it was then.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah, that's really beautiful. So, one other piece that I've been seeing from you online is how involved you get your kiddos in. So, you said you have two children.
Mhm.
Um, I see one that is younger than mine for sure, but I'd love to hear about their involvement in this process and how they are
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Yeah. So I have a 7 and a 10-year-old. One is in first grade and the other one is in fourth grade now. Oh my gosh. And yeah, they've been immersed in this like your kids since they were babies in the apothecary and the gardens. And, I, as a mother, made a choice that I would always tell them what was happening in the world, within the relative context of what they can emotionally handle.
Right.
And so when this started all erupting in Minneapolis, especially after the shooting of Renee Good, I told them and we went and visited her. Went to her memorial, which was thousands of people and led by the indigenous Sioux and Muskogee people in Minneapolis. So I wanted them to see and experience what was happening from the side of the healing. Like how are people standing up for what's right and what's good and what's just? And how can we, like Mr. Rogers said, when things are going wrong, look for the helpers, is what Mr. Rogers said, which I love that. And it's true. Like, look for the helpers. There's always people in every situation that are helping. And I was like, well, you can be the helpers too. So, what my daughters have done is they help me unpack and sort the boxes that come in. And we've been getting donation boxes from all over the country. It's amazing. I mean, people sending all sorts of medicines. So they help me unpack and sort. And then we also have been making our own tinctures and glycerates, especially the glycerates, which go to kids and families with smaller children. And so they have been helping me make labels, which is so sweet because I know for me, when there's a label that's got like children's drawing and artwork on it, it makes the medicine that much more
So much
alive.
better. So much better. Yeah, absolutely.
So they've been participating in that too and drawing pictures on the outsides of some of the boxes. And yeah, just, having them be a part of the medicine making. My older one can pour the medicines into the bottles. My younger one, not quite yet. But that's how they've been involved. And then they see these big boxes of boxes that are getting picked up and they'll be like, how many boxes? Where are they going to? And this week we're working on boxes that are going specifically to children.
Mm.
So I'm going to have them be a little bit more involved with writing little handwritten notes like, you're brave, you're great, don't give up, or, just whatever is they're called to write for these boxes so that the kids that open them can say, okay, well, look, there's other kids out there that know what's going on and I might not feel as alone.
I love that so much. And what comes to me as you speak about them helping and watching these boxes come in and go out and taking part of all of it is the moment down the road, 6 months, 6 years, 5 decades, who knows, where they meet somebody randomly who got one of these boxes and shares what an impact it made on them. It brings chills to me to think of that moment. And I think that's going to happen. So,
Beautiful. Oh, I love
what a,
that.
what a beautiful little piece there. I love that so much. It takes me back to just the labeling and putting things together. My daughter helped a lot in my apothecary. I had a product line for quite a while too, because, the herbal path takes you in so many different directions and different timelines. And I just remember wishing she were older so she could put the labels on straight at some of those points. But yeah, it's really beautiful to be able to involve our children in this process and to allow them to be aware of what is happening to that extent where it doesn't put them in this constant state of overwhelm and fear that so many adults feel these days.
Yes. Yeah. And just to speak to that, I'm a pretty well-resourced woman and I know my own limits. And in the height of everything, when boxes were coming and when things were really heightened, especially at the detention centers, and there were like women that were pregnant that were just being treated horribly. And I was on the news, like watching the news. I don't typically watch the news, but I wanted to know what was happening because this is my community. So I was ingesting so much news and social media that I had a health episode. I had an ocular migraine. I thought it was a stroke. It was so scary. And my children saw it. And I was like, okay, spirit, I'm taking in too much. My eyes literally, I was losing vision going across. And I just bowed to the higher wisdom and said, okay, I message received. Too much, too much. And so I had to take a step back and I had to reach out to some of the people and say, I'm taking, just so you know, I'm still active, but I'm dialing it way back because my health is being impacted by my involvement. But it was again, my choice of what I was doing, but it's so easy when you're in this work to not turn it off and not to realize when you're consuming too much visual information. So I just, if it helps one person out there, please learn from my mistake.
So many more wise words oozing out from you right now. I think so many of us can really relate to everything you just said. It's very hard to not pay attention when it's in your face all of the time. And it does cause issues for us all mentally and physically and spiritually. And if we're not aware of that and willing to listen to what is directly being told to us, that can result in a lot of unfortunate things in life. And for us to really make that change and make that difference and be those people there for others in our community, if we're not listening to those signs and those triggers, then we are not going to be able to be there for our community.
Yeah.
So.
And I have 2 groups that I'm teaching right now. I told my year 2, my more advanced students, I just said, I'm going to do my job, which is paying attention to my body and being a good advocate for myself. And we're going to have to just slow down the curriculum for a little bit because I'm needing more downtime than I anticipated. And of course, they're herbalists. They were like, honey, do it.
Yeah.
and I think like in just to remind ourselves that, when we're in these herbal communities, that when you need a break as a teacher or a facilitator, no one's going to shame you. No one's going to make you feel bad. We're usually the hardest on ourselves. And I was like, if I'm not going to be a good role model for these students I'm teaching, if I'm not really frank and honest with them about the wall that I've hit and what my needs are. And that was a huge learning, but I'm feeling so much better now because I did that. I didn't keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. And therefore you're going to provide even greater education and support and leading by example for those students, which I feel is essential. Yeah, they get it. They're also going through it, so they're probably like, whew, thank you.
Yeah, I get a break from my coursework too. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny the way that works. You're still in Minneapolis. It is March 3rd on the day we are recording this. You have amazing students. I know that you do a lot of time in your garden, which I think is incredibly therapeutic for so many people. And before we tap into that, I kind of want to just hear a little bit of the state of Minneapolis now.
Yeah. So unfortunately, a lot of the news lines have left Minneapolis and are not reporting on what continues to happen. So at the height of our ICE infiltration, we had about 3,000 agents in our city and in the suburbs, including as far out as like 50 miles from Minneapolis. So they were everywhere. including in my neighborhood, just at the Target, right down the street, like your neighborhood Target, there was like swats of them. So we had 3,000 at the height, and now we're down to about 2,000. And so that's a third less, which yay, that's helpful. But what has happened is actually they have become a little bit quieter. They're still here and they are still assaulting people of color, people that are documented, citizens. There was news that came out 2 days ago in front of the Whipple Detention Center, which is where they're holding a lot of these detainees, that there were protesters there. And there was footage again of people bearing witness, which has been such a huge part of this, is like people like you and me videoing what's happening on the streets so that there's documentation of the behavior of these ICE agents. And just 2 days ago in front of this detention center, they were pepper gassing and arresting protesters who were legally exercising their right to assemble. And so, yeah, and the footage was awful. I mean, bats, pepper spray, and being handcuffed and dragged. One person had a concussion and blood coming. I mean, it's still bad. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not better. It's just not being covered as widely.
Because we have so many other fun things to talk
know.
about in this government.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
the like constant barrage of insanity. It's great to step away for a moment and allow ourselves self-time.
Yeah.
And simultaneously recognizing that there's some people out there that can't step away.
Yeah. And we are still making these herbal care kits. Groceries are still, there's a lot of people that are still afraid, that are still rightfully staying in their homes. We have families in our school who have had a parent or two be detained and sent to Texas. So there are families that are still trying to figure out how to pay rent, how to keep their homes. And so there's a lot of mutual aid work. Like every day I get a text on my Signal group, which is this sort of like way to communicate without being, it's like encrypted communication, where I get daily texts saying, can you send $5, $10 to this family because they're going to get evicted as of March 1st, or, and so all of us are trying to send $5, $10 to all of these people, because if we can each do that, which is in my budget, then we can keep these families from getting evicted as they get their legal cases sorted out. So all of that is still fresh. And there's still a lot of kids in Minneapolis that aren't going to school because of their parents, either their parents' legal status or just the fear that's still present, especially in the Whittier community and in Northeast Minneapolis.
Yeah, that is heartbreaking. And I really appreciate you also sharing that this is still very much a reality of what is happening. And all I can think about is the families, the children that are going to grow up with this as trauma for life to work with, But hopefully they're getting those notes of "you are brave," and they are getting those care packages, and that helps with the trauma right away. And that just lets them know that there are people that are here for them as well. And they are not bad beings just because some bad humans are trying to say that they are.
Yeah. And another thing that, our school and a lot of schools kind of outside of the direct Minneapolis area are creating like info kits and play kits. So at our kids' school this week, all of the kids are coming in and bringing unused crayons, pencils, coloring books, toys, and then putting those into packages with notes. And then next week, I'm hosting, it's called Happiness in Bloom. So the PA Association, we bought a bunch of flowers, and the kids are going to come in. We're going to bring in recycled mason jars and write a note. And those are going to be delivered to the schools and also to some of the teachers that have been really impacted by their kids either being gone or having to teach Zoom and in-person classes at the same time. So we're going to be giving them fresh bouquets of flowers through our contact. So it's amazing. I mean, there's ways that we're all finding ways of showing up and showing that we care. And so those are just, again, some examples of how it's arising in the community here.
I love this. I love hearing these pieces. I think that is the beauty of this tragic time is the way that people are coming together in such incredible ways, especially like when the pandemic, that whole drastic shift in the ways we live happens so quickly and created so much loneliness, isolation, and separation.
Yeah.
To see communities coming together in these ways is beautiful, even though I know there are still so many people that are dealing with that isolation and separation out of fear of the insanity currently happening.
Absolutely.
So that is a really, really beautiful piece. You talked about the blooms. I know you do some really great work in your garden and having gatherings for people. That sounds like such a healing kind of event for those teachers, for those people that are feeling unsafe to go anywhere, for the people putting forth so much energy in trying to help others in their community. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your garden gatherings.
Yeah. So the garden gatherings, it's kind of like, it sounds kind of like your women's group that you are organizing there. It's a small group. It's organic. It's open to any woman who wants to join. And we just spend 2 hours in the garden. And we start with like a centering. There's an intention. We have a journal question. So everybody gets a journal. And we just sit in the garden and we reflect on a question that's relevant to the month we're meeting in or whatever's happening outside, like maybe boundaries or weeding, like what do you take out, or harvesting. So we reflect on a teaching from the plants. Then we do some sort of art project, and that could be, we did like it's on the other side of the room, but we did a big community painting where we gathered flowers and we had them glue, and then we had the elders draw the background and had the youngers fill it in with plants. It was a really cool exercise. And then we do medicine making. So each, whatever's in bloom on that day, I won't usually know until that week kind of what we're going to be making medicines with, but then we'll make a lemon balm tincture, or we'll make bee balm honey, which is my favorite thing to make. We'll make body oils or aromatherapy sprays or flower essences. And then everyone gets to take those home with them that day. And yeah, and then we do a closing circle too, where we just kind of let everything that bubbled up percolate and settle. And then we go on our merry ways. And it's a really, yeah, I love them because, well, I don't have to leave my house. It's in my backyard. So I can just kind of waddle down there with all of my supplies and people come. But I also love that sometimes people bring their kids. So we've had like toddlers and teenagers get exposed to being outside and listening and watching and making art from the plants that are around us.
I love the embracing of the mindfulness, the art, the plants, the medicine, all of it together. It sounds ideal. I wish you were closer. I'd be coming to your gardening gathering. That
I would
sounds
love
so
that.
good. Sounds so good. Um, and you have just been such a wonderful presence here on this show, dropping so much wisdom, so much lived experience, and learnings on your own timeline. So I'm really, really grateful that you have shared all of that. I can only imagine the levels of wisdom and guidance you offer to your students and embodiment to your students of like, hey, wait a moment. I am teaching you to become herbalists, but I need a moment. I think that's really beautiful. And I know your Herbal Foundations program is enrolling right now and beginning soon. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what that's all about.
Yeah, so that's my longest running herbal course, and it's a year long. 2 years ago, I reformatted it. So I have a bunch of pre-recorded content that students can take at their own pace. And then we meet once a month live on Zoom, and we do a quick recap of that module and then do question answer and then talk about the plant pairings for that particular module. And that's the way that I get the students to engage with the plants is for every module, there's 2 herbs that are similar but are different. And I have found that it's really nice to compare and contrast as a way of learning with the plants. So we do that 11 times. So we have 22 herbs that we compare and contrast And then we formulate and we learn how to blend them together. So by the end of the course, you know 22 plants really well, and you know how to blend them in different combinations depending on what you're hoping to do. And yeah, it blends a lot of my yoga philosophy in terms of mindfulness, slow, cyclical, seasonal living, and also just the earthiness of getting outside. So we do a lot of guided plant walks, and teach students kind of how to identify plants in their own backyards and how to harvest them and make their own medicines based on what's growing near them. And we've had students from New Zealand, Australia, the UK. We had one in Germany. So it's kind of cool. You can do this course from anywhere and still feel connected to your local plants.
I love that so much. It's there's a lot of things that are incredible. Like you and I got to do our herbal studies in person, right? Love that I got to do that.
Yeah.
But not everybody gets to do that. And the beauty of having this online learning that can be weaved in to learning about what is in your community, no matter where you're at, is awesome. It sounds like a really, really lovely program. And I'm sure that there's going to be some folks that are listening to this episode that would love to join you in that. I want to chat a few more questions, but since we're here right now, how can people find out about this? And in that same time, if people are herbalists out there that have product that they want to donate to you and help you get that out to people in your community, how can they do those things?
Yeah, so they could go to my website, skyhouseherbs.com. And for the course, you can just click on courses and you'll see the Herbal Foundations course. And we have an early bird rate now that runs until March 15th. And then we also have need-based tuition. So if you can't afford the early bird or the regular rate, there's an application, and then you can qualify for need-based tuition, which is a pretty low rate. We just want it to be open to as many people as we can. So that's always an option. And if that doesn't work for you, just email us, let us know. And then for the herbal care kits, we're really looking for salves, like tiny little tins, and then pre-crafted and labeled 1 and 2 ounce bottles of glycerates and tinctures specifically for nervous system and sleep. But that's what we need. Beyond that, we're pretty good. We've got pretty good stock of other things. And if people want to send those, they can email me at info@skyhouseherbs.com. And then I'll send you my friend's address, who is nice enough to let me use her business for drop-offs. Because I didn't, that's one thing. It's like you don't want to be posting your personal address out there. So, you want to find someone who has a P.O. box or an address where you can have shipments. So she was kind enough to let me use her business. So I can send that address to you, and then you can send things there. So thank you for mentioning that and opening your community to participate in these care kits.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I know that I have students that are interested. I've shared a few of your posts on Facebook and they're like, where do I send it to? Who do I send it to? What's going on with that? So I'm sure that there's listeners out there also very, very interested in it. And that's what it's all about, right? Spreading the word. I like to say making herbalism spread like wildflowers.
I love that.
Yeah. And that came about in 2020 for me. I think I mentioned to you that I live up in the foothills of Mount Hood, and we had a really, really bad fire season that year. And we were evacuating. And at that point, I still had my retail apothecary space and I had my product line, and I made a particular tea blend at mass quantity. Lessons learned. And it was called Respiratory Rescue. And so I donated like 5 pounds of that to our wildland firefighters. And in that moment of like, we're evacuating, what are we taking with us? It was a lot of herb books. It was my camping gear and my bike. That's what was going with me. But all of that emotion, I was thinking about how fast wildfires spread. And I'm like, but herbalism needs to spread like wildflowers. That would be much better.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, it's stuck around for a really, really long time. I mean, I'm not letting go of it.
No, don't.
It won't let me let go, how the plants do that. They call you and they say, you're on this path and
yeah,
I'm going to take you for a ride and a lovely walk and journey. And we'll have lots of stops along the way, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm so glad that we finally got to connect on this episode, this chat, and I would love to stay in connection. Of course, I'm going to share all of your information and all of the show notes and share it with the world out there. Maybe we can chat about you coming on and being a guest teacher in our community herbalist certification and mentorship. If you have the capacity and time with all of the work that you're doing, I have this feeling that you putting together the work that you're doing for your community would be a great offering for the people at large too.
Okay.
So many herbalists that want to know that kind of stuff. It's so incredibly important. So we can chat about that after this call. Yeah.
Yes.
And before we wrap this up, I would just love to hear if you have any final words of wisdom you would like to share with folks out there, or anything that at all. It doesn't even have to be epically wise, though I feel that whatever you say is.
Oh boy. I think just listen to the plants and follow the seasons. I think the resting is so overlooked in our culture, the need for rest in both smaller lunar cycles of each calendar month and then the larger seasonal cycles. And that's really what I've been relearning and revisiting a lot lately. So I don't think that's a word of wisdom as much as maybe just a reminder of something that we already spoke about, that because things can't germinate under, when the soil hasn't been fallow for a while. Nothing can bloom if we're constantly generating. So that, maybe that's what I'll leave with for today.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And yeah, it oozed wisdom as
I don't know.
I love it. Sometimes you just do it. Anyways, so cool. So they can find you at Sky House Herbs. Any other places they can follow you or find you or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. Up to this moment, I think I have like 450 videos and they're all free. So if people want to hear me blab on about plants, I've interviewed some really cool people like Mel. Actually, I haven't interviewed you yet, but maybe you'll come on my podcast sometime soon.
No, I'd love to.
Cool. So people, if they want to listen to my podcast, it's Sky House Herbs on YouTube. And I do a plant of the month. Every month I feature one herb. And that's kind of a fun way if you want to just add in more plant learning. A lot of people just kind of listen to only those ones. They're like, I want to learn about one plant. So that's just, I guess, one other piece or resource that I might offer that's out there.
I love that. Yeah, I think the one plant learning is so incredibly important. We do an herb of the month study. It's that one that is relevant to whatever body system we're talking about. Yeah. And of course, they learn other herbs along the way. But that is such a beautiful offering, and we will link to that as well. Thank you again, Ashley.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Herbalist Path. If you're loving this journey into herbal medicine, please follow and review the show. It helps more people find their own path with the plants. And if you know someone who could use this kind of support, please share this episode with them. So that way we can keep making herbalism spread like wildflowers. Also, a gentle reminder, nothing shared on this podcast is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. This is all for educational purposes and a little entertainment too. But it is not a substitute for personalized care from a qualified health practitioner. Always do your own research, listen to your body, and when needed, partner with a trusted professional who honors both your intuition and your unique health journey. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep walking the herbalist path. If you look around the world today, it's really, really clear that people are returning to the world of herbalism and plant medicine at a super rapid pace, and it's absolutely incredible. It's really, really great to see. And a lot of those people are practicing more of what I refer to as a surface level kind of herbalism. They're not understanding how body systems work and how to match herbs with symptoms rhythms and systems and structures based on energetics and constitution and things along those lines. And so as we have more of these home herbalists, heck yes, we need to celebrate. And we also need more knowledgeable, skilled herbalists that really understand the ability of the body to heal itself from the inside out, from the root. And if you are one of those people who, yeah, you've been playing with herbs for a while and you've seen them work and they're absolutely amazing, the more that you do it, the more you recognize that there is so much more to learn about plant medicine. I get it. And I want to invite you to consider the Community Herbalist Certification and Mentorship. So this is technically a year-long program where we go through all of the body systems and structures and learn different herbs that you can use to work with them and different protocols that you might want to consider for deeper disease states and chronic ailments and things like that. But not only are you getting all of this information, you're also getting myself and Brittany Williams of Eudaimonia Herbs alongside you as your mentors and your guides. We are there to answer your questions, to challenge you to think in a deeper way than you might when you're just doing the surface level herbalism, and to really help you feel confident in your herbal skills and knowledge. So when everybody in your community is asking you for help, you can go to them with solid information and advice and wisdom to share with them. Anyways, the Community Herbalist Certification and Mentorship is definitely the place to be if you are ready to take your herbal skills to the next level. And if you would like to learn more about that, I will go ahead and drop a link in the show notes down below, and would love to have a chat with you to make sure that this program is the right fit for you. All right, take care.